Ladies and gentlemen, today we're diving into a tough but important topic, narcissism and the struggle of trying to change people who refuse to change. We've all been there, extending kindness, offering empathy, and hoping that our goodwill will soften the hearts of those around us. But when it comes to narcissists, the truth is, no amount of kindness will alter their behavior. It can be painful to realize that despite our best intentions, some people simply aren't capable of responding to empathy the way we expect them to. So, today, let's talk about why being nice won't change a narcissist and how we can protect our energy, set healthy boundaries, and focus on the relationships that truly uplift us. At the end of this talk, you'll understand why you need to stop pouring your kindness into people who aren't willing to change, and how this realization can free you to focus on your own well-being and personal growth. When it comes to dealing with narcissists, one of the most difficult realizations is understanding the limits of kindness. We are often taught to believe that kindness is a universal solution, that if we treat others with empathy and compassion, they will in turn reciprocate and treat us with respect and understanding. This belief is especially strong when we are dealing with loved ones or colleagues, and it can be particularly challenging when the person we are trying to be kind to shows no signs of change. The truth is, narcissists do not respond to kindness in the same way that most people do. Narcissism is a personality disorder that is deeply rooted in a need for admiration, validation, and control. People with narcissistic traits often have an inflated sense of self-importance and a lack of empathy for others. As a result, no matter how much kindness you show them, they are unlikely to recognize it in the way that you intend. Instead of feeling grateful or moved by your compassion, they may interpret your kindness as a form of weakness or an opportunity to exploit your good nature. The more you try to be kind to a narcissist, the more you may find yourself drained and frustrated. This is because narcissists tend to take, without ever offering anything in return. They may expect you to constantly validate them while they show little to no interest in validating you or your need. If you're constantly pouring kindness and care into someone who is incapable of reciprocating, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You may end up feeling like you're constantly giving without receiving anything back, and this can lead to emotional burnout and a sense of powerlessness. It's also important to recognize that narcissists often lack the self-awareness necessary to acknowledge their behavior. They may not even see that they are being unkind or manipulative. To them, their actions are justified by their internal narrative, where they are the center of attention and everyone else is simply there to serve their needs. When you try to be kind, they may see it as an opportunity to manipulate or control the situation to their advantage. Instead of appreciating your efforts, they might take them for granted, expecting more from you without ever offering anything in return. One of the most painful aspects of dealing with a narcissist is that they often manipulate your kindness to create a one-sided dynamic. They may play on your emotions, making you feel guilty for not meeting their needs, or accusing you of being selfish for not constantly giving to them. In these situations, it can be hard to recognize when you're being manipulated, especially when you're motivated by a genuine desire to help or make the relationship work. Narcissists are masters of gaslighting, a psychological manipulation tactic that makes you question your own reality. They may make you doubt your perception of events, causing you to believe that you're the one who's overreacting or being unreasonable. This can further contribute to the confusion and frustration that you feel when trying to be kind. However, no matter how much you try to be kind or compassionate, it's important to recognize that you can't change a narcissist through your own actions. Narcissism is a deeply ingrained personality trait, and it often requires professional intervention for someone to even begin to recognize the need for change. While you may feel that your kindness can reach them or soften their behavior, the reality is that without their willingness to change, your efforts will likely go unacknowledged and unappreciated. This doesn't mean that you should stop being kind to others or that kindness is a fruitless endeavor, but it does mean that you need to be realistic about where to invest your emotional energy. Recognizing the limits of your kindness also means acknowledging when it's time to step back and stop giving. When you're dealing with a narcissist, it's important to set clear boundaries around what you are willing to tolerate. If you continue to pour kindness into a situation that is unhealthy or one-sided, you are not only sacrificing your own emotional well-being, but also enabling the narcissist to continue their harmful behavior. Boundaries help protect you from being manipulated and ensure that you're not allowing the narcissist to take advantage of your good nature. This may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you have been conditioned to be overly accommodating or if you feel guilty for not meeting their expectations. However, by setting boundaries, you are taking back control of your own emotional health and creating a space where you can prioritize your needs. When you stop trying to change a narcissist with kindness, you may also find that you begin to free yourself from the emotional toll that this relationship has taken on you. The more you invest in someone who is unwilling to change, the more you may find yourself trapped in a cycle of frustration, resentment, and burnout. Recognizing that your kindness won't change them allows you to let go of the unrealistic expectation that they will one day see the light and treat you with the respect you deserve. This, in turn, creates room for you to focus on healthier relationships where kindness is mutually shared and appreciated. In some cases, the best way to deal with a narcissist is not through direct confrontation or an attempt to change them, but by accepting them for who they are and adjusting your expectations accordingly. Understanding that you cannot alter their behavior allows you to shift your focus toward protecting your own emotional well-being and finding healthier ways to interact with them. This may mean creating more distance in the relationship, whether that's emotionally, mentally, or physically. It may also involve seeking support from others who understand the dynamics of narcissism and can help you navigate the complexities of the relationship. It's also important to understand that being kind to a narcissist doesn't mean you have to tolerate abusive or toxic behavior. Kindness doesn't mean submission, and you should never feel compelled to sacrifice your dignity or self-respect in the name of being nice. In fact, true kindness involves taking care of yourself and standing up for your own needs, even when that means stepping away from a relationship that is unhealthy. By recognizing the limits of kindness, you are learning to put yourself first and embrace the reality that some people are simply not capable of changing, no matter how much love, patience, or kindness you offer. Finally, recognizing that your kindness won't change a narcissist also means freeing yourself from the unrealistic expectation that you can fix or save them. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that if we love someone enough or offer enough support, we can somehow help them change their destructive behaviors. But this kind of thinking often leads to frustration and disappointment because change can only come from within, and it requires a level of self-awareness and willingness to change that many narcissists lack. Instead of focusing on changing the narcissist, focus on your own growth and healing. Empower yourself by accepting the reality of the situation and prioritizing your own well-being above all else. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most important steps you can take when dealing with narcissists. And it becomes even more crucial when you realize that your kindness and empathy won't change them. Boundaries are essential because narcissists often lack the emotional awareness and empathy to respect your needs or limitations. As a result, They may try to push your limits or take advantage of your good nature. Without clear boundaries, you risk getting caught in a cycle of manipulation and emotional exhaustion. Understanding what healthy boundaries are, why they are important, and how to enforce them can protect your emotional well-being and empower you to navigate the challenges of dealing with a narcissist. Boundaries are essentially limits you set to protect your physical, emotional, and mental health. They are the rules that help define what behavior is acceptable and what is not. In relationships with narcissists, boundaries are necessary to prevent the narcissist from overstepping, taking advantage, or exploiting your kindness. Without boundaries, you may find yourself constantly giving to a relationship that takes and takes without ever returning anything meaningful. Setting boundaries is a form of self-respect. It allows you to honor your own needs, prioritize your emotional health, and protect yourself from being drained or manipulated. One of the key aspects of setting boundaries with narcissists is recognizing that they may not respect them, at least not initially. Narcissists tend to see relationships as transactional, where they are the center of attention and everyone else is there to serve their needs. Because they are so focused on themselves, they often fail to recognize or care about the emotional needs of others. When you set a boundary, especially with a narcissist, they may respond with anger, frustration, or even disbelief. They might try to gaslight you, making you question whether your boundary is reasonable. They may guilt trip you, accuse you of being selfish, or try to manipulate you into abandoning your boundary. It's important to understand that this is a typical response from a narcissist, as they are used to getting their way and may not understand or accept that you have the right to assert your own needs. However, the fact that a narcissist resists your boundaries doesn't mean that you should give in or abandon them. On the contrary, this is the exact moment when you need to hold firm and reinforce your boundaries. The more you give in to a narcissist's manipulation or demands, the more they will learn that they can control or exploit you. Holding firm to your boundaries is essential for preserving your own sense of self-worth and ensuring that you are not constantly sacrificing your well-being for someone who doesn't value you in return. Setting boundaries requires clarity about what you are and are not willing to tolerate. It's important to be specific about your needs and expectations. For example, if a narcissist often calls you late at night and demands your attention, you might say, "I'm not available for phone calls after 9 p.m., or I need some time to myself after work, and I won't answer calls during that time." Being clear and direct helps to avoid confusion and ensures that your message is understood. Ambiguity often leads to misunderstandings or manipulation, so it's crucial to be as specific as possible. Another key aspect of setting boundaries with narcissists is recognizing that you cannot change them or force them to respect your boundaries. They may test your limits, ignore your requests, or push back against your needs. In these situations, it's important to maintain consistency and reinforce your boundaries without giving in. This might mean politely but firmly repeating your requests or distancing yourself from the situation until your boundary is respected. Consistency is key because narcissists will often push boundaries to see if you will stay firm or back down. If you allow them to cross your boundaries even once, it sends the message that they can continue to do so in the future. Enforcing boundaries also involves being prepared to take action when necessary. This could mean limiting contact, taking a step back emotionally, or even cutting ties entirely if the narcissist continues to disregard your boundaries. It's important to remember that you have the right to remove yourself from situations that are toxic or emotionally harmful. Enforcing boundaries is about protecting your own well-being, even if it means facing temporary discomfort or confrontation. A narcissist might try to guilt-trip you into feeling bad about enforcing your boundaries, but it's important to recognize that their emotional manipulation is not your responsibility. You are not obligated to tolerate behavior that undermines your mental health. One of the challenges of setting boundaries with narcissists is that they often have a strong sense of entitlement. They believe that the rules don't apply to them and that they deserve special treatment. As a result, they may try to make you feel guilty or selfish for setting boundaries, especially if those boundaries conflict with their desires or needs. For example, a narcissist may insist that you always prioritize their needs, disregarding your own. They may accuse you of being uncaring or unloving because you are not available to meet their demands. In these moments, it's important to remind yourself that you have the right to prioritize your own well-being and that taking care of yourself is not selfish. If you don't establish and maintain boundaries, you may find yourself constantly giving in to their demands and neglecting your own needs in the process. It's also important to understand that setting boundaries with narcissists does not mean that you are being unkind or rejecting them. Boundaries are not about punishing or shutting someone out. They are about creating a healthy space where you can protect your emotional health while still engaging in a relationship, if possible. Setting a boundary is a way of communicating that you respect yourself and your needs, and that you expect the same respect in return. A narcissist may not understand this at first, but over time, they may come to realize that they cannot manipulate or control you the way they once did. While it's unlikely that a narcissist will completely change, maintaining your boundaries can reduce their ability to take advantage of you. Another aspect of setting boundaries with narcissists is recognizing that their behavior is not your fault. Narcissists often try to make you feel responsible for their feelings or actions. If they react negatively to your boundaries, they may try to make you feel guilty or blame you for the tension in the relationship. It's important to understand that their behavior is a reflection of their own issues, not a reflection of your actions. You are not responsible for their emotional state, and it is not your job to fix them or cater to their every need. By setting boundaries, you are simply taking responsibility for your own emotional health and asserting your right to be treated with respect. In some cases, setting boundaries with a narcissist may mean limiting the amount of time you spend with them or reducing the emotional energy you invest in the relationship. This could mean keeping conversations brief, limiting the types of support you offer, or withdrawing from situations where you feel your boundaries are being violated. In extreme cases, it may even mean cutting ties entirely if the narcissist behavior is consistently harmful and shows no signs of improvement. Setting healthy boundaries is about recognizing your own worth and taking steps to protect yourself from harm. When dealing with narcissists, boundaries are not just a matter of asserting control, they are a matter of survival. If you continue to ignore your boundaries or allow a narcissist to push them, you risk losing yourself in the process. However, by setting clear, firm boundaries, you are giving yourself the space to heal, grow, and preserve your emotional health. When you are dealing with a narcissist, one of the most important realizations you can have is the understanding that you cannot seek validation from someone who is incapable of offering it. Narcissists have a deep-seated need for admiration and validation, but this need is often one-sided. They are more focused on securing their own validation from others than they are on offering it in return. As a result, if you continuously seek validation from a narcissist, you will find yourself in an unbalanced and often frustrating relationship dynamic. You may constantly feel undervalued, overlooked, or emotionally drained, as they may be unable or unwilling to recognize your needs for affirmation and support. The truth is, no matter how much you give, or how much kindness you offer, the narcissist will rarely, if ever, validate you in a meaningful way. In a relationship with a narcissist, your attempts to gain validation can feel like you're chasing a moving target. Narcissists often shift between extreme self-centeredness and indifference, rarely offering the support or acknowledgement you may need. They may even belittle or dismiss your achievements, emotions, or needs in favor of their own, creating an emotionally toxic environment. This lack of reciprocity and validation is one of the defining characteristics of narcissistic relationships, and is why it can be so painful to continuously seek approval or recognition from someone who will never truly give it. For many people, validation is essential for emotional well-being. It reassures us that our feelings are seen and heard, that our contributions are valued, and that our presence matters. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and acknowledgement. However, narcissists operate from a place of insecurity, needing to inflate their own self-worth by receiving admiration from others while offering little to no validation in return. In such relationships, seeking validation from a narcissist will always leave you feeling unfulfilled, because their validation is often shallow, conditional, and tied to their own agenda. One of the reasons why narcissists are unable to offer genuine validation is because they have a distorted view of relationships. They view relationships as a means to an end, a way to boost their own status or sense of self-worth. Their need for admiration is not about building a connection with others. It's about reinforcing their inflated self-image. As a result, they may only acknowledge your achievements or validate your feelings when it serves their interests or when they can derive some benefit from doing so. In these instances, the validation they offer will likely feel hollow, as it is motivated by their need to maintain their own sense of superiority rather than a genuine appreciation of you. When you continue to seek validation from a narcissist, you also risk losing sight of your own sense of self-worth. Narcissists are often skilled at making others doubt themselves. Through manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional abuse, they can erode your confidence and make you question your value. This can leave you in a constant cycle of seeking approval and doubting your own judgment. Narcissists may use your need for validation against you, creating a dynamic where you feel dependent on them for emotional support. This can be especially damaging because it reinforces their control over you and weakens your own ability to recognize your inherent worth. Seeking validation from a narcissist often leads to a pattern of emotional dependence. When you rely on them for approval, you may find yourself constantly adjusting your behavior to meet their expectations, trying to appease them or make them happy. This can be exhausting, as narcissists tend to change their expectations frequently or make them impossible to meet. The cycle of seeking validation becomes a never-ending process where you are left chasing their approval, but never quite reaching it. You may even feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict or disapproval, all the while becoming more and more disconnected from your own needs and desires. One of the most difficult aspects of seeking validation from a narcissist is that they are often unable to offer it when you need it the most. Narcissists have a limited capacity for empathy, meaning they struggle to understand or relate to the emotions of others. When you experience a hardship or need comfort, the narcissist may respond with indifference or even disdain. Instead of offering support, they may redirect the conversation to themselves, invalidating your feelings in the process. This lack of emotional support can leave you feeling abandoned and isolated, even in the presence of the narcissist. You may also find that narcissists will only validate you when it benefits them. If your accomplishments reflect well on them, or if they can use your success to enhance their own image, they may offer praise. However, this validation will be fleeting, and once it no longer serves their interests, they may turn a blind eye to your needs once again. Over time, this lack of consistency can leave you feeling like you're not truly seen or appreciated for who you are, but rather as a tool for their own self-gratification. The key to breaking free from the cycle of seeking validation from a narcissist is to begin validating yourself. When you stop depending on the narcissist for approval, you take back control over your own sense of worth. Self-compassion involves acknowledging your own feelings, celebrating your achievements, and understanding that your value is not contingent on someone else's opinion of you. This may feel challenging at first, especially if you've been conditioned to rely on external validation for so long. However, by practicing self-compassion and learning to value yourself, you can begin to rebuild your confidence and break free from the toxic patterns of seeking validation from a narcissist. One way to start the process of self-commission is by acknowledging your own emotions and giving yourself permission to feel. Instead of seeking external validation, take time to reflect on your own experiences and recognize your own growth and progress. When you accomplish something, celebrate it internally, regardless of whether or not the narcissist acknowledges it. Recognizing your own achievements, even the small ones, will help you rebuild a sense of self-worth that is not dependent on someone else's approval. Additionally, surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care about you and who offer validation in healthy, supportive ways can further reinforce your sense of self-worth. Another way to stop seeking validation from a narcissist is to let go of the expectation that they will ever validate you in a meaningful way. The more you expect them to change, the more likely you are to continue feeling disappointed and frustrated. By accepting that the narcissist is unlikely to offer the validation you desire, you can free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of hoping for something that will never come. This acceptance doesn't mean that you stop caring about the relationship, but rather that you shift your focus away from expecting emotional support from someone who is incapable of providing it. Breaking free from the need for validation from a narcissist requires shifting your mindset and embracing the reality that your self-worth comes from within, not from external sources. By learning to validate yourself and stop seeking approval from those who cannot offer it, you take control of your own emotional health and begin to create a more balanced and fulfilling life. It's not easy, and it may take time, but with patience and practice, you can move away from the cycle of seeking validation from a narcissist and towards a healthier, more self-affirming path. Focusing on relationships that are mutual and uplifting is one of the most empowering decisions you can make when navigating the challenges of dealing with a narcissist. Narcissistic relationships are inherently unbalanced, often leaving one party feeling emotionally drained, undervalued, or manipulated. In these situations, it can be difficult to find the strength to walk away or to prioritize relationships that truly nourish you. However, making the conscious choice to focus on connections that are based on mutual respect, support, and understanding can significantly improve your emotional well-being and provide the stability and validation that narcissistic relationships cannot offer. One of the key aspects of a healthy relationship is reciprocity, where both parties give and receive support in equal measure. In a mutually uplifting relationship, both individuals genuinely care about each other's well-being and take the time to validate each other's feelings, celebrate successes, and provide comfort during difficult times. Unfortunately, with a narcissist, this reciprocity is often absent. Instead, the relationship may feel like a one-sided effort, where your emotional needs are neglected in favor of the narcissist's constant demand for attention and admiration. By focusing on relationships where mutual care is the foundation, You begin to reclaim the emotional energy that was previously invested in someone who cannot reciprocate in a meaningful way. When you shift your focus to healthier relationships, you begin to surround yourself with people who genuinely care for you, appreciate your worth, and are willing to invest in the relationship. These people do not drain your energy or make you feel responsible for their emotional well-being. Instead, they offer support, validation, and encouragement, without expecting anything in return other than the mutual respect and kindness you both share. In these relationships, you can experience the true meaning of emotional connection, where you are not just a tool for the other person's self-esteem, but a valued and respected individual in your own right. One of the most significant benefits of focusing on relationships that are uplifting is the sense of emotional fulfillment and validation that comes from mutual respect. Healthy relationships provide a space where both parties feel heard, understood, and appreciated. Unlike the one-sided nature of a relationship with a narcissist, where you may feel as though you are constantly giving without receiving, healthy relationships are a two-way street. When both individuals are committed to nurturing the relationship, it fosters an environment where both parties can thrive emotionally. Whether it's through small gestures of kindness, offering words of encouragement, or simply being present during difficult times, these relationships provide the emotional nourishment that you may have been lacking in a narcissistic connection. In contrast, narcissistic relationships often leave you feeling emotionally exhausted, unappreciated, and even invisible. Narcissists are typically preoccupied with their own needs and desires, leaving little room for concern or empathy for others. They may expect you to constantly validate their sense of importance while offering little to no emotional support in return. This one-sided dynamic can be incredibly damaging, as it forces you to constantly sacrifice your own emotional needs in order to keep the narcissist satisfied. Over time, this can lead to a sense of emotional depletion as you pour more and more of yourself into a relationship that takes and takes without ever replenishing you. When you focus on relationships that are supportive and mutually beneficial, you free yourself from this exhausting cycle. You no longer have to constantly adjust your behavior, tiptoe around someone's fragile ego, or endure emotional manipulation in order to maintain the relationship. Instead, you can engage in relationships where there is a natural flow of give and take. These relationships are not about proving your worth or earning the approval of the other person. They are about sharing a connection that is built on genuine care and respect for each other. When you shift your focus to these kinds of relationships, you begin to feel more valued, appreciated, and emotionally fulfilled. Another crucial aspect of focusing on relationships that are uplifting is the sense of security and safety they provide. Narcissistic relationships often leave you walking on eggshells, unsure of when the next emotional outburst or manipulation will occur. The unpredictable and volatile nature of these relationships can create a constant state of stress, anxiety, and insecurity. In contrast, healthy relationships provide a stable and secure environment where you can feel safe to express yourself without fear of judgment or retaliation. In these relationships, there is room for vulnerability, and you are not constantly on guard, wondering when the next emotional blow will come. Instead, you can build trust, share your thoughts and feelings openly, and know that you will be met with understanding and empathy. Focusing on uplifting relationships also means prioritizing your own needs and emotional health. When you're involved with a narcissist, it can be easy to lose sight of your own well-being in the constant effort to please or appease them. Narcissists often demand excessive attention, validation, and support, leaving you with little emotional energy to care for yourself. In a healthy, supportive relationship, your emotional needs are equally important, and you do not have to sacrifice your well-being for the sake of the other person. These relationships encourage mutual growth and support, where both individuals can thrive and become better versions of themselves. In such relationships, your own self-care is valued and respected, and you are not expected to neglect your own needs in favor of someone else's. One of the most empowering aspects of focusing on uplifting relationships is the sense of liberation it brings. In a relationship with a narcissist, you may feel trapped in a cycle of emotional manipulation, guilt, and self-doubt. You may feel as though you are constantly walking a tightrope, trying to keep the narcissist satisfied while suppressing your own needs and emotions. This can create a sense of emotional imprisonment, where you feel as though you have no control over your own life or decisions. In contrast, healthy relationships offer you the freedom to be yourself, to express your thoughts and feelings openly, and to live authentically without fear of judgment or criticism. When you focus on relationships that are uplifting, you release yourself from the emotional prison of narcissistic dynamics and embrace a life of emotional autonomy and self-expression. Furthermore, uplifting relationships provide a sense of community and belonging. Narcissistic relationships often leave you feeling isolated and alone, as the narcissist's self-centered behavior makes it difficult to form genuine connections with others. In contrast, healthy relationships foster a sense of connection and support, where you can rely on others for guidance, encouragement, and love. These relationships create a network of emotional support, where you can turn to others for help, advice, or simply a listening ear. This sense of community is vital for maintaining emotional resilience and can provide the strength needed to break free from toxic relationships and build a more fulfilling life. As you focus on cultivating healthy relationships, it's important to remember that not every relationship will be perfect or free from challenges. All relationships require effort, understanding, and communication. However, in a healthy relationship, both parties are committed to working through issues together, respecting each other's boundaries, and offering emotional support. In contrast, a narcissistic relationship is one where only one person's needs are prioritized, leaving the other person feeling unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. By investing in relationships that are built on mutual respect, you create a foundation of emotional well-being that cannot be provided by narcissistic dynamics.